the newly re-elected Prime Minister, Lawrence Wong, with us of Singapore. This is Prime Minister's first visit also to China. And,
as Prime Minister.
Yeah, as Prime Minister.
I'm no stranger to China.
No.
I've come to China almost every year.
And you speak the language, huh?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. And I think Singapore is also the largest investor in China still.
Yes, we are.
And,
for 12 consecutive years.
Yeah. And I think you were also in Beijing and meeting with President Xi Jinping.
Yes.
Yeah. That went well?
It went very well.
Yeah. And the mood was good? The mood was good?
Well, we have a close partnership, very broad and substantial, a very unique partnership. We call it an all-round, high-quality, future-oriented partnership.
Wow. That sounds very substantial.
It sounds better in Mandarin.
Does it? A lot of things sounds better in Mandarin. Also when you say slow is fast, you know, or a crisis, I think has a double meaning.
Yes, weighty.
Yeah. So maybe Prime Minister, I know that you have a few initial thoughts, and then we'll have a dialogue for half an hour.
Sure. Well, thanks again, Børge, for the introduction. I think we are meeting at a time of profound changes in the world. After the end of the Cold War, the world saw an unprecedented period of global integration, characterized by open markets, rapid trade, free trade, rapid movement of capital, goods, ideas, and people across borders. And this brought benefits to many people, and for a long time this vision held true. Davos embodied this vision, a vision that global integration would deliver peace and shared prosperity. Unfortunately, I think the world is changing. We see over the years more pressures. Discontent against globalization has risen. It started way back. I remember in 1999 when the WTO was held in Seattle. You already had demonstrations and protests there. But since then, year after year, you see in advanced economies, cities being destroyed because factories are closed, livelihoods get disrupted, jobs are displaced. And in more recent years, because of COVID and the concerns over supply security, because of conflicts in Europe and the Middle East, now concerns about security have risen. And we are in a very different position today. The global norms, global rules are weakening, global institutions are weakening, and economic nationalism is replacing win-win cooperation. For small countries like Singapore, we are worried because we have limited options, we have limited bargaining power, and we risk being marginalized. But even bigger countries, I think, will have challenges dealing and operating in such a new environment because it will be harder for everyone to deal with common threats, be it pandemics, climate change, or financial shocks. So I think our response has to be collectively to try and still harness forces that will bring people together, promote integration, bring down barriers, and strengthen multilateralism. Multilateralism that is more resilient, more inclusive, and better suited to the realities of our time. So Singapore will do our part in this endeavor, whether it's forging partnerships, updating global rules, or advancing dialogue, working together with partners like the WEF. The efforts may seem small and incremental, but if like-minded countries everywhere were to do our part, then collectively I think we can make a difference. And then step by step, hopefully we can lay the groundwork for a new and more stable global order in time to come.
Thank you. I think Prime Minister deserves an applause for that. Picking up on your last point, what kind of order or more stable system could we foresee in the future? I think we had one world order after the Cold War, and that order is not really there anymore, but we don't know what is coming. the Premier lead this morning said we have to avoid the law of the jungle, or the jungle growing back. But how do you see this new system of cooperation? You could see a more multipolar system, but at the same time you see soft power replaced with strong power. You see interest spheres also being developed. So multipolarity is one thing, but aren't we seeing more a system of interest sphere? And that for smaller, medium-sized countries would be quite a challenge.
It is going to be a challenge. I think, frankly, no one knows what this new order will look like. It's still very early days. We are in a period of transition and a period of evolution. There will be critics of today's system that say it's good that now the system is changing. But I would also say let's have a care. Let's not be too quick to cheer, because what is the alternative? So we have to think through very carefully how we can evolve a better system. And I'll give you two examples of global institutions that have come under pressure, but over the years have been able to reform and upgrade themselves. First, the IMF. I started work as a young economist in the 90s, so I still remember vividly the 1997 Asian financial crisis. People till today call it the IMF crisis. Because the IMF came in with strict austerity, one-size-fits-all measures, and there was a reaction. But look, over the years, the IMF has reformed, it's updated itself, it's customized its approaches, become more responsive, more transparent, and it has taken into account local circumstances and context. It's an improved, upgraded IMF. To be clear, there's still reforms to be done. For example, and in particular, where it comes to the shareholding and governance structure, which still reflects a world after World War II, and needs to be adjusted to better reflect the realities of today's economy. But that's one work that needs to be done and can be done in order for the IMF to maintain its credibility and legitimacy. Second, the WTO. It has brought about free trade, a rules-based trading system which has benefited many countries, but there is a feeling that the system is not working as well. And indeed, some of the WTO rules have lagged behind the realities of today's economy, particularly in digital trade. So what do we do? And again, the response is not to jettison the rules, but to think about how it can be improved. And a few countries, like-minded countries, Singapore working with Japan and Australia, we have come together to initiate a joint initiative on e-commerce. And after 5 hard years of negotiation, today, more than 70 countries have agreed on the first set of rules for digital trading. It's the building block for the first set of global rules on digital trade. And I give these illustrations to show that it is possible to update, evolve, improve the multilateral system and global institutions that we have today. It is painstaking work, but there is no alternative. A new system does not just appear by magic. You have to work at it. And with creative, pragmatic solutions, bringing along like-minded countries, if we are able to start some of this work, do the building blocks one by one, then in time to come, others that are more ready can join in. So this is what we would call a flexible multilateralism. It's not about ad hoc array of different rules, but starting first, laying the building blocks, and eventually others can join in, and we can steer progress in the right direction.
It's very interesting, this notion of flexible multilateralism, because congratulations on getting an agreement around, I think, what they call these plurilaterals on this e-commerce. It means that countries that have common interests come together, and now we have more than 70 of them, yes, and forming like trade rules in e-commerce.
That's right.
And later on, it can be more and more more and more countries contributing or being part of it, and then it could even turn into something that is multilateral.
Yes.
But with all these kind of more plurilaterals and also bilateral trade agreements,
get too complicated,
and regional ones and all that, don't we end up with a big spaghetti bowl then?
Yes, there is that concern. But again, I ask, what is the alternative?
Exactly.
Do nothing? It cannot be do nothing and hope that someday along the way something new emerges out of nowhere. I think we have to start from somewhere. And if we start with like-minded countries, putting in place some basic building blocks, but always with a view that whatever we do, it is open, it's inclusive. Others may not be ready to join, but in time to come, they can join, and we can multilateralize these efforts.
Exactly. Have also Singapore changed its approach? I think traditionally you were doing more trade agreements under multilateral agreements like WTO, but have you now embarked on bilateral trade agreements, mega regional ones? Are you know, some countries are really getting a lot of agreements there. I think number one is Chile with like 100 of them.
Well, we did start with many bilateral FTAs too.
Yeah.
And then over time, these FTAs became the building blocks for a more robust multilateral system. Yeah. Today, when we look at the situation and some of the rising barriers to trade, again, our response would be to still work at reforming and updating the WTO, but in parallel, we are engaging with like-minded countries to find ways in which we can strengthen our trade and investment links. And we start with the countries nearest to us. Yeah. Malaysia and Indonesia, for example, we have a special economic zone now with Johor in Malaysia. We are working with Indonesia, where there's a free trade zone in the Riau Islands just next to us. So we have very close links with our closest neighbors. But even within Southeast Asia, we have a very close link with Vietnam. The Prime Minister of Vietnam is here. We have a connectivity agreement. We are doing something like more than 20 industrial parks in Vietnam. And then for the whole of ASEAN, we are looking at ways to better integrate ASEAN and make us more united, be able to offer a more competitive single market to investors. So that's within ASEAN. But outside of our region, we are also engaging different blocks. We already have very close links with China, Japan, Korea, India in Asia. But we are engaging outside of Asia, for example, with the EU, with the GCC, with Latin America. So we are trying to find ways to strengthen links with like-minded entities everywhere around the world.
If you look at global economy, we've seen that the growth this year was expected 3.2, then it was revised to 2.8, yes. Now to 2.5. Some have revised it down even to 2.3. Yeah. And WTO said the other day that on goods, they even expect maybe a contraction yes. of 1.5%. So trade used to be the driver of growth. I guess we need to find a different driver of growth moving forward. Could that be the new technologies? Could it replace trade? And how fundamental is the changing also on the trading landscape and the economic landscape? How do we avoid a sluggish growth for a decade to come like in the 70s?
I think trade will still exist. There is a move towards security, resilience, greater self-sufficiency, but frankly, no one can be completely self-sufficient. Trade will still be around. Maybe it will not grow as much as it used to, but I believe there will still be trade, but the patterns of trade will change and evolve. Different supply chains, different configurations, and for Singapore, we just want to remain competitive and relevant and stay at the center of these evolving trade links. So trade remains relevant, but changing patterns. Technology will be a new driver, I'm quite sure of that. I think the move towards sustainability will also be another driver. We all want to decarbonize, we want to get to net zero, we will need to harness new sources of clean and renewable power. We need to decarbonize industries. So both technology new technologies, especially digital technologies and sustainability I think will power the economy of the future.
It's interesting we heard it this morning too, that digital trade is growing 8%,
yes,
while seeing trade in goods, manufactured goods, is almost peaking. We also see services are growing much faster.
Yeah.
I guess this is relatively good news for Singapore, though, because you're strong in services and you're strong on the digital and technology side.
We want to be strong in everything. But yes, we have some strengths. We have some strengths in financial services, logistics. We have some strengths in digital technologies, and we will continue to harness these strengths to stay competitive and relevant. Life is always difficult for a small country. History has never been kind to small nations. So we have to work extra hard compared to bigger countries to keep relevant and stay alive.
But the 60 last years have not been that bad for Singapore, though. It's a miracle, isn't it?
It's not, we think it's nothing short of a miracle, and so my mission is to keep this miracle going for as long as I can.
And it seems like the voters in Singapore approved by your policies. I think you increased your party's result with 6 percentage points.
I'm very grateful for their mandate.
Yeah, and not all incumbent parties can say that, at least not in Europe.
I can't speak about politics in Europe. I only care about, well, I can only manage the politics in my country, which is enough for me.
And managing politics in Singapore means that you also have to deal with the big players, because you're such an open economy. As I said at the beginning, through Singapore, you are the largest FDI, foreign direct investor, in China,
yes,
but I guess in many ASEAN countries too. And now you have to maneuver between your special friends in the US, yeah, and in China. How do you balance that?
Yeah. Well, that's the favorite question that gets asked of Singapore in conferences like this. I'm surprised it took you a while to get to the question.
I wanted to warm you up and hope for a different answer, you know?
Well, the simple response is we have good relations with both. We have broad and substantial relations with both America and China. And I know everyone monitors and tracks what we say and what we do very closely, trying to parse every hidden meaning behind every word, behind every action, whether we are moving closer to one or the other. But that's not how we look at things. That's not the way we approach it.
And because currently we are in China too, so.
Yeah, I know. And maybe tomorrow when I'm in America, then they think differently. But our starting point is that we look at things from Singapore's point of view in advancing Singapore's national interest. Our interests are to have close, good relations on substance with both America and China. And we will continue to do whatever we need to do to promote and advance Singapore's interest. It's not about balancing between the two superpowers, but it's about being consistent and principled in advancing and promoting Singapore's interests. And that's what we will continue to do. And I think if we continue to do so in a consistent and principled manner, our partners, whether it's America or China or other countries, will see us more as a reliable and trusted partner that we can work with. I would say also that Singapore's position is not unique. We want to be friends with both America and China and to have good relations with them, cooperate on win-win areas. But it's not just us. All of Southeast Asia would like to do the same. And within ASEAN in particular, no single country in ASEAN may have that same size and scale. But when you add ASEAN up altogether collectively, we are not small. We have considerable heft. We are 700 million people, a sizable economy. And ASEAN has the ability to shape its own destiny, to shape its own future. ASEAN was the arena for proxy wars during the Cold War. We don't want that to happen again. So ASEAN's approach is very clear. We reject zero-sum competition. We embrace engagement with not just America and China, but with other major powers. And we want all to be engaged in this region, in Southeast Asia. America is the largest investor still in Southeast Asia. China remains the largest trading partner. We want both to be actively engaged. We want other major powers to be actively engaged. And we want the region to be an open and inclusive arena where people have stakes in the region and we can all work together for shared prosperity. And ASEAN will work towards that objective.
But ASEAN is quite a diverse group too.
It is.
So,
hence the work to integrate and to make ASEAN stronger and more united.
How is the single market going?
Becoming better and better each and every day.
With baby steps or big steps?
Yeah, we will keep trying. I would say, if you think about it, there is already a very intricate supply chain connecting ASEAN. You can have, for example, cotton from the Philippines being spun in Thailand, dyed, and then stitched together into garments in Vietnam or Indonesia and exported to the world. And
shipped out of Singapore?
Possibly out of our ports, with HQ in Singapore, with R&D done in Singapore. So it's an entire ASEAN supply chain, which it already exists today, and we are continuing to find ways to bring down barriers. We are largely tariff-free today, but I think the barriers are also in non-tariff areas. And we are trying to find ways to bring down barriers, to integrate our economies, our payment systems, a whole range of things to make ASEAN more competitive and to offer ourselves as that single market to investors.
Prime Minister, you said that your role is to advance Singapore's interest and also to be a reliable partner. But is it more complex today because of the fragmented geopolitical landscape we're faced with to advance interest than in the past?
For sure. I readily acknowledge that. My job is harder.
And sometimes you can end up between a rock and a hard place. But it doesn't seem like Singapore has ended up there so far.
So far, no, and we hope we won't end up there as well. If we end up in a hard place, it's not just us. Many other countries will also end up in a hard place, and I think the consequence of that will be disastrous for the world. So we hope we will never get there.
We were very close to almost a full-fledged war in the Middle East. It could have also ended up with spreading to the Gulf countries.
Yes.
And it seems like this is cooling or calming down.
We hope so.
Yes. And then we have, for the first time, a major war in Europe happening. How worried are you for the future that we could again see wars happening? And even if you're seeing sluggish economic growth today, just imagine if the war between Israel and Iran had spread and a closure of the Strait of Hormuz would have happened. It would have had devastating consequences. What can we do to mitigate the risks? And the NATO meeting is happening now, and they're increasing their aspirations to 5% of GDP to the military. Yeah. Who would have thought that? It was controversial. Last time I was at the NATO meeting, it was controversial to go up to 2%.
Yes. As I said just now, it's a different world because the accumulation of discontent against globalization, as well as a combination of recent experiences with COVID and security concerns have led to a situation where today security is a paramount concern of many countries. And so it's not just about military spending, it's about more resilient, more secure supply chains, for fear that along the way, If something were to happen, if push comes to shove, I need the supplies, but it's not forthcoming. And no country wants to end up in that position. So it's understandable that countries are concerned, governments are concerned, and responding to this concern. But I think we should have a care about abandoning the concept of economic integration, because integration cannot guarantee peace, but I think it certainly gives us a better chance for peace than a me-first approach. The more countries prioritize their own private national interest and allow the common global or shared interest to go down the drain, the more we will all be worse off. That lesson is so clear from history. So let's not repeat the mistakes of history.
I think that's it's a very important reminder. Coming back to the tariffs and trade, what has your dialogue with the U.S. administration been so far? What is Singapore faced with?
Oh, we've got 10% tariffs.
That is relatively a good deal, though, isn't it? Oh. I heard about 140%, but I think that's no 50, isn't it?
Well, if you look at the facts, we have an FTA with America. America has a surplus with us. So on the basis of the FTA and the fact on the trade balance, we should have a 0 tariff, not a 10% tariff. But I think America has decided that 10% is their baseline tariff, and they are probably not going to go below 10%. So we have been engaging the officials, but that I think is their sort of mindset at this stage. But I know that other ASEAN countries have higher tariffs than us, and they have been also engaging their American counterparts. And we hope in time to come, when America makes a decision on the reciprocal tariffs, that it will be able to bring them down, at least closer to 10%, if not 10%. If indeed 10% is going to be the baseline applied to all countries.
And I think it's also important to remind ourselves that, we're getting used to 10%, but this
is still very high.
It's 3 times higher than it used to be on average from the US. So it's already quite substantial.
Yeah, that's why I've said that we are in a new era where there will be more barriers to trade. And we have to accept these realities. Not that we think it's a good idea, but these are the realities that we have to work with. And in the meanwhile, countries that would like to promote and advance the agenda for free trade should come together and work in different formats, different platforms, whether regional or plurilateral platforms, to advance the agenda for free trade. And Singapore will be the first to lead the charge on this.
Singapore has always been at the forefront also when it comes to technology. Just go to the port of Singapore and it is just mind-boggling what you're faced with. With Gen AI, with the robotics, with the synthetic biology, with also now satellites, but also space, there is so much happening. Some people say it's the second industrial revolution. This is as big as the industrial revolution. You can see increase in productivity with 10% in the coming decade if you apply Gen AI in the right way. Could you, when we're getting now at the end of this dialogue, say something about how do you assess the magnitude and the paradigm shift we're faced with in these technologies, and how do you position your own country to be at the forefront?
We think it's a major game changer. AI will be a major game changer. We, like all countries, would like to harness the benefits of technologies and AI to push the frontiers of our economy, raise productivity, and improve the lives of our people. But I would say that our focus is not just on what happens at the leading edge. there is a lot of media attention on where are the breakthroughs, which are the next unicorns, which are the next big, when will we get AGI, to materialize? All these are important conversations, no doubt.
Or a DeepSeek in Singapore.
Maybe, but we would like to harness AI in a different way, which is to make sure that the benefits are broad-based, get every Singaporean, every company to really make full use of technology to improve and uplift themselves. And I'll give a simple example. When we embarked on our computerization drive in the 1980s, we had very few computers. My family, we weren't rich enough to have a computer, but the government made computers easily accessible to every Singaporean in community centers so we could learn, get used to it. In school, we had a computer club. It was very popular. Many of us would go there to play computer games, no doubt. But along the way, we learned, and we got familiar. And it's not just at the top end. Everyone became familiar with computers very quickly, and we could harness computers and new technologies to improve our lives, to be more productive, and to transform society. In the same way with AI, let's not get too obsessed with what's happening at the cutting edge. But how can I, as a government, harness AI effectively to transform my processes in government? How can businesses, big and small, even the small, medium enterprises, make full use of AI to improve their processes, to become more productive? And importantly, how can I get every worker to master AI tools and be familiar with AI tools to be more productive? That's what we are obsessed about.
I think that's a great aspiration. It's also about wealth trickling down,
yes,
and everyone benefiting from it. And I think that when I followed the election also in Singapore, I think at least my interpretation is one of the reasons why you did so well is we were addressing also practical challenges for the people in Singapore.
It has to be. It has to be. I mean, the
housing prices and all this.
A nation's progress has to be shared, felt, and experienced, and translated into improvements in the lives of people day by day. If it does not, there will be a disconnect, and the compact gets undermined, and societies don't hold together. And we don't want that to happen in Singapore.
And you saw the primaries in New York, maybe, this morning?
I've not been keeping track.
No, but I think we should look it up. That shows also that if things are not addressed, it can lead to also frustrations. But Prime Minister, so good to have you here.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed the discussion and also learning from your thoughts. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Very good to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.